Welcome to Middle Fingers Up, the show where we hold our heads high and our middle fingers higher. I'm your host, Kieran McKay. Today's episode's really exciting. For one, MFU went mobile, so this is the first time we took our little gear and tech stuff and hooked it up at our friend's house. So a big shout out and thank you to my friend Mina Nat. Some of you may have met her in an episode we did way back. I think it was called The Day I Befriended My Anxiety. So Mina's letting us sort of sit at her little island in her kitchen. And also it's kind of like a little retro remix, because we're also going way back and bringing back our very special guest, Aman Randhawa. And many of you will remember Aman from episode 4, which was Suck It Up Princess. I love that name. And then episode 7, which was the cool guy in the back alley. And those two episodes actually were really memorable in that people really appreciated the candidness and the vulnerability of the guys. My brother and my husband Carrie were on these ones too, just talking about what goes on for guys and how do we support men's health, and particularly in the South Asian community, like what are some things we can be doing to help guys feel like they can talk more and connect better. So that was a great episode. Both those episodes were great. So we don't just have Aman here. We also, I'm really excited today, have his wonderful wife. I feel like more like my gal pal, Brenda Randhawa. And Brenda and Aman have been together for over 20 years. They've been married for 15 years. And we kind of got married in 2008, the same year. They got married in March. We were in, I think, September coming up here. So it's really cool. They both have 2 kids together. And so we were really happy when both of them agreed to come on today, because it'd be really cool to get their perspective on their relationship, how they've been together for as long as they have. And also as an interracial couple, what are the good, bad, and the ugly, and the questions people have been sending in about relationships. So I'm really excited to get their feedback. Okay, so I can finally welcome you guys. Thanks for being so patient and silent. So welcome you two.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you let me arm wrestle you into coming back for the 3rd time, Aman, and bringing Brenda along. So you guys are the best.
We're super excited to be here.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Okay, so I'm really excited because you guys have been such big supporters. Aman, you reached out recently and thought of a really amazing opportunity to invite a guest on and get their story. Appreciated that. You even shared when your episodes came out, just feedback from other men saying, hey man, hearing this, or that time before this episode, you talked about that thing. I felt I could talk about my thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's so cool that you are a big supporter and here today in live and living color.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Happy to be here.
Right?
This is also new.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. For you guys.
Yeah. For
Together.
Sure. Yeah.
Together. I know.
Worried.
We can't talk trash about one or the
No.
other, right? You guys are both here.
I could before.
What can't I say?
Before I could just say, hey, Karen, edit that part out. But
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Now she's here. Now she's
So
here.
many edits. There's so many edits about things that he said about, yeah.
I could just imagine.
Yeah. And the B word he used wasn't Brenda.
Uh-oh.
I'll tell you that.
Uh-oh.
Just
We'll talk
starting
about
shit.
it later.
Yeah. We laughed earlier because we thought this is like the Maury Povich show, which was like a big part of your growing up. Didn't you love
It was
Maury?
my favorite. I had the biggest crush on him. He was such an empathetic man sitting with those women. They were heartbroken. And he sat there and, treated them like people.
I love that you say that, because you've also, that's a big, like you're just literally describing yourself. First of all, this is who you are as a human being. And also that's your career path as well,
Yeah.
right? You're an empath. You work with folks in all sorts of different relationship settings, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool that he was an influence, because a lot of us thought, oh, that's like a really good entertainment
Totally.
show, right?
Well, that was
but
that
Brenda
too.
sees the good, and this is the thing about Brenda. So I just have to say, in the Randhawa family and the other sub last name families in our big family that I've always talked about, we used to live on the same block. Like you want to talk about a village, we all had these couple of blocks we lived on.
Yeah.
And so whenever there's drama in our family, which every family has drama, and it's not just Indian people, as I've learned, and you've probably learned, I'm in, right? Because Brenda's not Indian.
Totally.
Anytime there's a war or a fight going on, Brenda's like that neutral, like Switzerland party that comes in with the water supplies.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, you know what? Let this helicopter through with all the medical supplies. We won't bomb it because we love this person. Like that's Brenda. Everyone will like stop a fight because Brenda's here and we all love Brenda. I don't know what it is about you, but you just have this amazing quality where I have never heard anyone talk crap about you.
Even Mina's dog when we got here.
Yeah, even Mina's dog. Mina's like, my dog does not warm up like this immediately to people. I'm like, of course, it's got to be with Brenda. Yeah. I've been here for 4 days and your dog and I have not even acknowledged each other.
Yeah, but Brenda walks in. It's like, hey, buddy.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
And your husband is saying that too. He's backing it up. So isn't that so sweet?
Today.
Yeah.
Because I can't edit, right?
Yeah. Because this is like evidence. So he has to say nice things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sitting right across.
This is really why we're recording. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're going to talk about. How do you stay together when you're so mad at the other person?
It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It's a hard thing. Yeah. But there's a lot of learning that, we were not the same people that we are when we met.
Mm-hmm.
And we almost like molded to each other in ways as we grew and as we learned, and we adapt and we understand that gridlock happens and we accept it and we move forward from it. That's, I think, like Aman's not perfect. I'm not perfect. And I'd probably have us with someone else that have the same problems or different or, and it's just a matter of accepting it because you love that person and you want to be there forever.
And there's a lot more good than there is bad.
Yes.
That's a big, reason that we stay together. So there's always bad, but
there's more good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what do you mean by that?
Well, just there's been out of the percentages of time that we've been together, the amount of good time we've had together far outweighs the bad times. There's been hard times.
Yeah.
I think there's, you also have to find a difference between that. Like everything in life can be hard. Mostly anything that's worth anything is hard to achieve.
Yeah.
So there's hard times. I'm not saying there wasn't hard times, but in terms of things being bad in our relationship and things being good, I feel the good, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, has been much more good than bad.
Yeah. I think we've been focusing on, studied with the Gottman Institute, and they talk about how relationships are like bank accounts. If you put 5 positive interactions in, you're able to afford like a negative interaction. So if you're depositing more money in and just taking less out, then you're good. You're golden. It just has to be 5-to-1 ratio.
Yeah. That's, I love that. That's like so well said. I think that's also like really easy to visualize and understand. I can't, if I don't have $100 in my account, I can't go buy $150 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
And if that's what I want, what do I got to do? How do I motivate myself? What kind of job do I get so I can have $150 in my bank account? So then you're also talking about there's all these things you're doing on the outside to, quote unquote, earn that money for your relationship. And that's really well said because if you offend each other, you understand, well, you mean well because you have more positives in there. Like maybe you're tired, it was a bad day, I shouldn't have said my thing either, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And you draw from the good stuff when you're leading into each other. On a day-to-day basis, Aman goes to the kitchen, he checks with me, what do you want? It doesn't have to be these huge things where he takes me in a limo to wherever.
Those are always good things too, though.
They're great, but they're very on the day-to-day, the little stuff. I took the dog out for a walk for you, or just little things, and it really
it all adds up.
It does. Yeah.
It's just meaning like the person's always sort of there. You're thinking of them versus that out of sight. Oh, I didn't think to ask you when I went to the kitchen to get myself that thing versus your...
Totally.
Yeah. And maybe that's a part when you said earlier, Brenda, like molding together. Is that sort of what you were saying?
Yeah, definitely.
That's definitely, I think, part of her coming into me where it's like before in the early days, like
Yeah.
I'd go into the kitchen, do whatever I wanted,
Yeah.
and then just come back and sit on the couch.
that
And she's
was
like,
you.
"Oh, where's my stuff?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you."
Yeah.
Whereas she would, before even leaving to get something for herself, be like, "I'm going to go to the kitchen. What do you want me to bring you back?"
Yeah.
So I think, just being more
Yeah.
aware, just being, I don't know, just being
Considerate.
nice. Yes.
Yeah. just be
Considerate.
nice and
That's
considerate.
right.
Yeah, for sure.
I like that. I feel like you should write a book about on the way to the kitchen, because I think that's a really nice way of describing a solid relationship. It's just, you're being thoughtful. You're thinking about the other person. And it, like you said, it's the little things which add up eventually.
Yeah.
The thoughtful
definitely.
things.
And it's pretty easy.
It's
Yeah.
so easy, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't,
Okay.
this is new. I feel like this is probably when you started your journey,
Mm-hmm.
you started to see us more
Yeah.
in your, in your world,
Mhm.
I guess, in a way.
Okay, well, like, can we talk about that? What do we talk? What journey? I know, kind of talked about his journey, but like, what journey? I want to hear from you.
Okay, so Aman started counseling. I don't know what year, but he started counseling, and he started to really work on his reactions and his anger and his addressing his drinking,
Mhm.
and really grew and learned what his triggers were.
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah.
Babe, I'm talking for him. I'm
I
talking
know.
about your
No.
journey.
Yeah. Because
Well,
you were a part of
I
it.
think he has talked about it, and I think it's good to hear your perspective, because
Mhm.
you haven't been on the last couple, and he shared this.
Yeah.
He's been so open to talking about it. Can I ask you? And I had asked Amin this too, and I want to know from you. What do you think led him to do that? Because I think there's a lot of people out there, whether they're in a relationship or not, maybe going through similar things that you described with like their temperament, maybe their anger, you get irritable, like upset at things, drinking, drugs, whatever it may be, and it's an everyday part of life. And I think there's people that are realizing, I don't know if this is like working for me. Like this is getting hard to do. Like this
Mhm.
isn't serving me. But they want to take that step, but it's just like, what's the string that ties me to taking that next step? What do you think was a thing for Amin that got him to actually go into action mode and do that, go get help and stop drinking?
I think it might have been, and this is me talking for him. So I think it might be, the kids getting older and sort of not coming to him for things. And he was noticing that the relationship that was starting to blossom wasn't what he wanted with his kids.
Yeah.
There was a level of fear that they had with him sometimes that, he witnesses the kids with me and it's sort of like, well, why aren't they like that with him? And I think that there was some things that our daughter had said as an innocent child, and I'm probably not going to say it, but
Fair.
made him realize that, hey, this isn't healthy.
Yeah.
She's going to go out there and perhaps look for somebody like this.
Mhm.
And this is not what I want for my daughter. So if I could say what the pinpoint moment was, I think it was that. But Amin, do you concur?
Yeah. I think that was definitely the last thing that I needed to be like, this is what I have to do now. I also knew that, like she wasn't going to want to be with me.
Yeah.
Like
That's what you said. I remember you saying that. Like eventually she's going to say,
like,
and you,
I'm done.
that meant too much for you to like lose essentially.
Totally.
Like eventually she's going to be like, I deserve better.
Yeah.
Or
And
whatever.
she did, right?
Oh,
And
yeah, definitely. I
so-
think that when we got together really young.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was 21.
Yeah.
He was my first love.
Yeah.
And I came from a family where I was a people pleaser.
Yeah.
I was the middle child. My parents, were refugee parents. We had to fit in. We had to make sure that everything was kosher all the time.
Mm.
And so I let a lot of things slide.
Mhm.
So before when you were talking and we were talking about how if I was the me now
Mhm.
meeting Amin then, we would have never
No.
have gotten
Yeah.
together ever because I didn't have a voice then.
Yeah.
And as I was getting older, that voice was coming out and I was
Mhm.
learning a lot about myself. And it was getting to the point where there was no positives
Yeah.
for a little while,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
What do you think keeps people together or you guys together when there's less positives in that bank account? Now you're like maybe going to go into bankruptcy. And you're like, what do you do? How do you not go into that mode? Like,
Well, I think for me, a big part of it would just have been like culturally, like growing up from
Yeah.
where we came from, like that wasn't really what people did.
Get divorced.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We, like nowadays it's very different, right?
Yeah.
Like people don't have to go through that, like, you know, and stay together just because like they don't want this guy saying bad things about them or whatever.
Yeah.
But still, like I didn't want to be a reason as to why like my family can't be together. I didn't get married to her and then have children with her because I was like, well,
Right.
whatever, you know. It was, we made a commitment to one another. We didn't take the standard vows of like, oh, I'm gonna treat you good or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But it's
hey
like,
man, you guys got tattoos
Yeah.
on your ring fingers,
Yeah.
so you're kind of bound together forever.
Totally. So that goes without saying
Yeah.
that, you know, we should be better to one another. And I had a big role in that. What she's saying is correct. Like it took me a long time to just grow up.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been like grown since
Yeah.
we've been together.
Yeah.
But for me, she's obviously grown in different ways now.
Totally.
But she was always way more responsible than I was.
Yeah.
Right.
Would you say like in some ways kind of like a caretaker to you in those years?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She didn't call me Prince Aman for nothing.
Prince
Yeah.
Aman, is that your name? Oh
Yeah,
man.
Prince Aman for
Yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
It's just because he's the youngest.
Instead of Prince Ali from Aladdin, right? Prince
Yeah.
Aman.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I guess going back to your question, it was why do people stay in
Yeah.
there? Why do people not? When we got together and we were going to get married, divorce wasn't something that we were open to. Like
Yeah.
if we were going to commit to each other, we were going to work through it thick and thin. And I think that commitment and
Yeah.
that agreement, obviously nobody goes into a marriage saying divorce, you know.
Totally.
We both had that value.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what helped a lot of it too. And we
kids.
love each other's family so much as well. Like, can you imagine if something like that happened, Kieran? Like,
Yeah,
oh my
we'd,
God.
we'd go with Brenda, just so you know.
I know.
I'm not surprised.
I actually think
me,
about this. Yeah.
you know?
They're like, oh,
Yeah.
like, I think like I would still come to the weddings and
Yeah,
stuff, right? Because
Like,
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So in my newfound trying to just be like a better person, one of our family members had an issue. She went to the hospital and she had to get emergency surgery. It was really big and she was in the hospital for a long time. And so one day I had to drop AJ off at his tutor's house and they live in the same city. So I'm like, oh, I went to this flower store. I bought her these flowers, like, you know, hanging baskets she can hang in them, you know, so when she gets home from the hospital, they can hang them out in the front door and she'll come home to some niceness, you know? So I dropped it off and she wasn't home. She was still in the hospital. And then Brenda comes home. I don't know. It was like 3 days later. And she's like, oh, did you do this? And I'm like, yeah. She's, oh my God. She sent me a text message thanking me to be like, oh, because no one thinks that I would do that, right? In our family, it's like, oh, Brenda did this.
So-
or she told
you.
She told him.
Yeah.
But she had no clue that I even done it. I didn't even come home and be like, this is what I've done.
You thought you would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so
there
that's,
you go.
okay. So I'm glad you brought that up because we're just going to do a little going back to like childhood growing up stuff for a second. Cause I'm right now in BC visiting family. And every time I feel, I don't know about you guys, but when you're like with your family dynamics come up and you're like, man, just going back to your point of, okay, so you've grown, you're this different person, but the family member knows you as you always were.
That's right.
And so sometimes when I'm sitting in the room with my family and I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I'm in Calgary thinking, man, I'm self-aware, high five, I'm growing. Yeah, post it in the mirror. You go, girl. And then I get with my family and I'm like, I'm a fucking piece of shit. Like what fucking growing have I done? Because we pull each other back or they think you're still that person. You're still that stupid whatever person that rhymes with punt. This whole trip I've been like, hi, it's me, I'm the problem. Like the whole time I'm like, fuck, where'd my growing go, man? Where'd my growing go? So I just thought of that way. Do you think about that? That you have relatives and family members that have known you as we've known you. And maybe now, as you're saying, the last 4 or 5 years, this massive growth spurt you've had. And maybe that doesn't matter.
I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
Like I know just like more friendly and just like I tried, you know, especially with the older generation, like the aunts and uncles and stuff, like I try to put a little bit more effort into that because we're not going to have that for forever. I don't know. I get so much enjoyment out of it. Like I get a lot of it back. it's so much positivity from them
Yeah.
coming from me just by me spending a little bit of time.
It doesn't bother you.
No,
It
used to.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they just give me positive back,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, so the reactions that I get, just, I feel that just.
Yeah, people know by that. Yeah, having these good conversations with you, right? Yeah. I mean, that's how I would feel too. Like when I am around you, hardcore, it's like, wow, we talk about you sometimes you're not even in the room. Man, I think for where I'm sitting, it's super empowering to knowing Aman in the way that life was and how he grew up and the choices he made. And I think in the last couple episodes, we talked a lot about this. Am I a victim and blame game, right? Because these bad things happened to me, or I never was fortunate enough to get those good things.
Yeah.
Then I'm just going to work at that level versus actually it's not really helping me, right? These are the things I think were like the gratitude you have in the last however many years you're saying. I think that's what people are probably the responses are giving. They're like, man, this like, you're bringing flower baskets, right? Like,
and that's the molding from her, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what she's imparting into me. Look how good this is. Like, like, isn't this good?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, fuck, this is great.
Yeah. We don't have to be on drugs for it to be this good.
Exactly. I'm like, wow.
This
like,
is,
how good.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, they're just them feeling good is making me feel
totally.
good, right?
Wow, isn't this better? Yeah.
Being a light instead of darkness.
Yeah.
It's so much better.
Like for years, anywhere we'd go, I'm Vietnamese, so anytime you go to anywhere, you have something to bring. It used to annoy the fuck out of Aman. Like he's like, what? We got to stop here now? We got to do this now? Why do we got to do this?
Yeah.
And now he gets it. And you know, it's just the modeling. I think it's like the way that you model boundaries for me and the way that you stick up for yourself. Like I didn't used to do that.
Yeah.
And now I learned how to do that because I watched you do it effortlessly. And our kids get sort of like the best of both worlds, like this soft side and this super hard side sometimes.
Yeah.
And hopefully they end up being this well-rounded individuals.
That's the hope, right?
That's the goal.
Yeah, kids are amazing. They're definitely on that path.
Yeah.
You guys are doing good work with those two.
But I will just say like that we're not perfect.
No, definitely
I have
not.
many moments a day. Like today I didn't deliver on a couple things.
Shit.
So, but not a big deal.
Is it the heat? Let's blame the heat.
No. It was just like,
Aman.
it's just, you know.
Yeah. But he knows there's the awareness, right?
Yeah.
He knows that he's like, oh shoot.
I would pick at that before, like, why are you mad? You shouldn't be mad. But I'm just like, okay, like, I'm sorry. Like, it is what it is. Like, we're going to be late. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's accountability.
Like it is.
And nobody cares if it was about being late to here today. Well, because on our end, what do we care? We're like, okay, whatever, right? Like, so I think sometimes we get worked up or whatever the situation is. But I think that's the thing is sometimes we think, what's the point of changing when it's not completely different? And there's this amount of work you do to grow and maybe not being the way you would have picked at, but it's still there because that's a part of who you are too, right? Like sometimes we think of to change a complete person and then we're like, well, I can't change the fact that I have a temper, but there's a way that I can deliver my temper.
Totally.
And I have to be responsible about my temper and know that these things get me anxious.
Other people too.
They affect other people, but also that in the moment, these are the three things that piss me off and I better prepare to deal with that in a way. Otherwise, everyone else in the room has to deal with it, right? Because like you said, it affects everyone else. And I think that's what you said earlier too, was like this fact that Aman's been more present and you see him, or I think you said you see him more. And so, or he sees you guys more, you were saying in the beginning. He sees you guys more. And I was like, oh, that's like he's more present. And even recognizing that little example of the family member, like, this little thing would make them feel better because you're thinking about people from outside of you, like that bird's eye view versus when it happens, we get caught in ourselves and our hair, as I say, when I have my head up my ass and think this only happens to me. I'm having the worst day ever, whatever. And then you back it up and you're like, actually, there's more, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I'm going to pause for a second, but you have to do your middle fingers up. So do you think
I've dreamed of this moment?
Have you?
I have every time. I'm like, do I email her?
Yes.
Should I email her?
Yes, I always ask for feedback because I will gladly read. If you have them, please send them. I always say to people.
This one's been like Costco, people at Costco that park their carts in the middle of the lane to go look at something on the other side and block all traffic flow in Costco. That is my biggest middle finger up.
Yeah.
And I don't understand.
And those carts are big.
But it's, the rules of the road, I think, really do apply for the rules of Costco.
Yeah.
So why aren't people doing this?
Yes.
So that's my middle fingers up. Short, simple.
Yeah.
And
fuck those cart people.
You feel it, right?
Yeah,
you feel
I
it?
do.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Because it's like lack of spatial awareness.
Exactly.
And then you're like, I actually don't want to drive next to you either.
Yeah.
Because you probably have lack of space. If you have lack of spatial awareness with a cart, please don't get on one of those Lime scooters that you guys have everywhere around here.
Yeah.
It's like everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool. They're cool. They're good.
They are.
Our kids are just not going to get driver's license and just
They're
take
just
these Lime scooters.
Scooter around. I'd rather spend like whatever
Why
$400 or
not?
$500 on that.
You're like, you know what? I never had a car bought for me, but I'm going to buy you your first mode of transportation.
2-wheel vehicle.
Yeah. And it
All-wheel
can be
drive.
high end too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It could be like how much do they cost? Like $200-$300?
No,
$500?
they're like $500 or $600.
Shit,
No.
I can't afford that.
If you want like a top of the line, they're in thousands.
Okay, well, I thank you for that middle fingers up. Good one.
I think of you every time I go to Costco.
Oh, yeah, do it. Yeah, I'd be like, I don't go. Carrie has to go because I get too much anxiety. I one time had a panic, not really a panic attack, but I was like, I can't, there's just too much happening.
Yeah.
So he just parked the cart on the side with me and he's like, don't move. And I was like, I can do that.
Yeah.
And he went and got everything.
I'll just piggyback off of Brenda's and just say like inconsiderate people.
Inconsiderate people.
But I think I am that person sometimes. So I guess I'm doing it to myself. But
yeah.
But there's an awareness
mm-hmm.
when you're doing it. You're
It's
like,
true.
that's an asshole move. But
You're like,
I'm
just
just
so you know, I'm purposely parking my cart here and peeing because I own this place.
No,
it's different.
I don't do things like that for sure. But like I am sometimes someone texts me and then I start looking at my phone and I'm pushing my cart and it's like going sideways. And I'm like, uh-oh.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah. But I do say sorry. And
Okay. Well, I have one too today. Mine is about conversations and knowing how to have joining statements, like middle fingers up to having conversations that result in being one-sided. And when you're talking, people are saying things like, no, it's not that way. No. And then you're like, well, there's no more conversation then because you've decided that it's not that way. We need to just work on, and again, I'll do it too, because I'm probably sucking at this too, is when people are talking, instead of waiting to say what I want to say or disagree with you, join. If I say the sky is purple and I'm an idiot and it's actually blue, I'm not saying you should agree with me and say, yeah, the sky's purple, but that's interesting. The sky is purple. Okay. Maybe ask me a fucking question about why I think that.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying no. Yeah. Or just saying, but also, and then talking about your own thing. It's like just a joining statement of that's an interesting thing you're saying, or oh, okay, good point. Even like that, just even that's interesting.
Yeah,
is enough before you say your own thing. I don't know. I'm just noticing in some of my conversations that sometimes I need to do it, but also some people that I've been talking to lately, and I'm like, oh man, like I'm just gonna have nothing to say.
Oh, yeah.
It's you're so keen on this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really a conversation. Just tell me, like, hey, I'm about to make a point, so just shut up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. They say that going in with curiosity will always broaden up those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So
it doesn't actually kill the cat after all.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Even in conversations in our relationship, like if I request something of Aman and he says, no, I don't want to do that, then leading in with curiosity instead of being like, well, fuck you then, it's about
why don't you
learning more. Yeah. Let's talk about this, Aman.
Yeah.
Why isn't it that you want to do that?
Yeah.
But it's good because
Tell me
a lot
more.
of times I'll say the things that why, and then she'll be like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think your intention isn't to offend me in any way. It's just because you have your opinion, I have my opinion. It's no one's right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just our opinions.
Yeah.
It's been a real big eye opener going in with curiosity because some days when I have the space and I'm available, like I can do it. When I come in with it, our disagreements are over in a second.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even disagreements. But when I take it internally and I'm like, well, he just said no. And, then I walk away and then there's, we turn away from each other. So that's something that in our relationship, I find very helpful.
Yeah. I think what you said really well there was because you have your individual points, it doesn't mean that A, you have to convince each other, but also B, that one's right or wrong.
Totally.
Yeah.
So when you're right, when you can go into an argument or a conversation or even disagreement with, I don't have to bring you over to my side to just see why I think the sky's purple. And you don't actually have to bring me on to your side. Like, who fucking cares?
Yeah.
You know, we always say validation does not mean that you're agreeing. I think sometimes in relationships, that's where we get stuck. Okay, so let's start at the beginning, okay? Can you tell us the story of how you met? Like, how did you two get together? So it was, what is it, 22, 23 years ago?
Yeah,
21.
22 years.
Yeah.
So I was 21, yeah.
Yeah, because we met in 2001 too.
You want me to tell the story? Okay.
Didn't you guys work together?
Yeah, we worked together.
Yeah.
I worked at the front of the house. Amin worked at the back of the house. And then I met our friend introduced, it was his first day.
Yeah.
And the cooks, like there's a little hole in the restaurant that they push the food out. So he's like, hey, this is my friend Amin. And I took one look at him and Amin had eyebrows like crazy. That's all I saw of
But
it.
they're the same right now.
I know, but you know, when I didn't know you, that's all I saw. So I was like, oh, eyebrows. and then I had problems with his name. I think I called you Almond.
Something like that.
Yeah, because we used to bug him after that.
Yeah.
And then I took like one lunch break with him and he made me laugh the whole time. So I was like, this guy's freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
I need to spend more time with this guy.
Yeah.
We were at a Christmas party one time. I was introducing him and it was, hey, I can't remember who it was. This is Amin. Amin, say something funny. He's really funny. Say something funny. Come on, just say it.
He was
And
probably
Amin's
so
like,
mad.
probably like high, didn't know what to do with
Yeah.
himself.
No,
And
I didn't.
yeah, so then I think did you ask for my number? I don't know.
Maybe, but I think there was a big part of, like our mutual friend.
Oh, yes.
who-
Our girlfriend, my girlfriend, I went to high school with her. And then so Amin found out I knew her. And
Yeah.
I think you
And I'm like, please, Steph, tell her whatever she wants to hear. I'm like, tell her that.
So we
And-
should
you
do
were really,
And
you were
she-
really interested in her.
Yeah.
And were you interested?
Oh, no.
No.
I
So
was.
you
She
just thought he
didn't
was
date-
really
she
fun.
I
didn't
thought
date
he was
brown
really
people.
funny.
Had you ever dated a brown guy?
No, I
Yeah.
had never dated.
Yeah.
But I went to McNair. Like, there were so many brown guys,
Yeah.
but I never dated a brown guy. So
Was it usually like a Asian guy?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
This is just a different Asian.
yeah,
That's right.
exactly,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
But so I wanted to shout out to Steph Dychuk,
Yeah.
who
Look at this.
came on our dates with us the first, because I wasn't
She
gonna.
She chaperoned.
Yeah.
Did-
Well,
I
they
don't
weren't
remember.
dates. She would do meetups. Like she would come and we would hang out together,
Yeah.
but it was never an official date.
Yeah.
And then we went on a date.
Yeah.
And then my sister ended up having like a big group. And then my girlfriend, one of my best girlfriends, was serving us. So he thought the whole thing was rigged. And
I'm like, this is a setup.
yeah. Like all the important people were meeting him on our first date.
And then I
Yeah.
think
Your parents walked in.
Yeah.
then
You guys got engaged. You didn't even know that day.
we went to a movie after. I think it was that Russell Crowe movie where he was like spoiler alert, but whatever he was like at the beginning it seemed like he was like the super smart mathematician or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But the end of the movie, apparently you find out that he's just some crazy human being. So
What was that movie?
I can't remember, but we watched it for like 5 minutes and we looked at one another and we're like, let's bounce.
It was dumb.
We thought it was, but now that I found out about what happened, I'm like, oh my God, that was probably such a great movie.
It was probably because our energies of a first date sitting in a dark room watching a boring movie. Like we didn't
We're
want
like,
to do that.
yeah.
We
A
probably
Beautiful
wanted-
Mind.
That's what it
A
was.
Beautiful Mind. Didn't that one win an Oscar?
I'm sure it did.
That
That's
sounds
probably why we went and watched it. And we're
That
like,
was
this
a
is
good
garbage.
movie. Yeah. So did you guys watch it now?
No,
No.
I still haven't. Last year was like my friend Daryl told me. He's like, oh, do you know this happened? I'm like, what?
What?
No. He's like, oh, okay. And I'm, damn, I should have watched that. But then we left there and I think we like walked around Minru Park for like hours
Oh yeah.
and then
Yeah.
sat on a bench and just sat and talked for a long time.
Until like 3 a.m.
Yeah,
Did
something
you like
that.
him by the end of that date?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I did. But then
for
I
you.
still played games. Like
She did.
I didn't
Lots
answer
of
you
games.
his
did.
phone.
You held out.
Oh,
wow.
so many
Good for you,
games.
girlfriend.
Yeah,
You
and
let-
then and then Amin played games after for a
Mhm,
while.
mhm.
We
Then
just-
I got her.
see. This is the thing. Tit for tats.
Yeah.
Tit for tats are not good in
Totally.
relationships for
Good.
sure.
Good point.
hmm
You were
I think
you
the
were
rest is
playing hard to
history.
get.
Yeah, no, and then that was it.
That was it. Then you
That
guys
was
were
Started
together.
dating,
Yeah.
and then we broke up for a little bit. And then
You
we got
did
back
break
together.
up.
We
Mhm,
did.
mhm.
Why?
I moved away.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Aman moved away to be, it's not a millwright. It was like
A carpenter.
or something. The story changed every time. We don't really know.
I was having a apprenticeship as a joiner.
That's what it
in
was.
joinery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then he came back pretty quick.
But you were really a botanist.
That's right. Then I came back. But prior to coming back, we had already like resumed our relationship.
Yeah.
I think we had broke up for like a month, and then I came back like in and around Valentine's Day, and then I bought this ginormous teddy bear with the little money that I had with some flowers, and I delivered it to her house. And I'm like, could
He
you
delivered it in front of my mom. And I think that was something that, because my mom wasn't
down with
Aman really. He wore a velour tracksuit all the time.
And that's all automatic gangster.
Yeah. So my mom was just not happy with it. But then he showed up with that, and then she's just sort of, it's like, oh, okay, I guess.
But I was always nice and polite, and I was never mean or rude to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Regardless of how it, like, I think I said it on the podcast before, how my brother-in-law, he didn't talk to me for a very, very long time. And then we became like very close to one another because we realized like we were so similar to each other, right? But yeah, I was never mean to him, or I was never like, screw you, buddy.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm like, I knew he was important to Brenda, so I was smart enough to not, you know.
Well, there anything you want to add to that?
I guess you'd say the rest is history.
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah.
After that breakup, that was it, and then you guys stuck it through. And
But that was in the beginning when I bended a lot, and
Sure.
you know, I still bend, but like I bent backwards a lot.
Yeah.
And
A lot more than I did.
And I
Why?
went inward a lot. That was it's just my personality, and
you
it's
just saw the best in him.
Not that. I think she's just so selfless. Like she's just, like she said, she's a people pleaser, right? She it's not that she wants people to like her. It's just like she wants people to be comfortable and like make sure you're not hungry and make sure you're not whatever. So
Rather stay hungry so someone else can
100%.
be okay. Like
Yes.
you put your needs on the back burner and everyone else's. And I think you had mentioned earlier too, like part of that is you had learned your voice and boundary building from being 20 something and being young and not knowing. So so we kind of talked a little bit about this, but I did a little intro about you guys. Can you guys really quickly share 3 words that would best describe each other? So like you have to tell everybody in 3 words what Brenda is like, and you have to do the same, like 3 words to describe Aman. You're going first?
Ladies first.
Look at you.
Okay, so 3 things to describe Aman.
3 words.
3 words.
Yeah. For
Him
people
as
that
a
don't
person-
know who Aman is, what are the 3 words that you would use to describe him?
He's wise. He's
Do you want me to go first?
yeah, sure. There's that word. Let me think of the word.
Because he's so wise. He knows the word.
She's selfless. For sure, beautiful is one of them.
Aw, she is. She's a little beauty. Inside out, this one.
Empathetic. She's so considerate of others, just anything.
Yeah. That was a lot of little words put together to describe.
I'm sorry.
And no, they all mean the same. Yeah, like you really get a sense. Those are nice words.
Okay.
Your turn.
Wise.
Okay.
Driven. And focused. And mad sexy too. So yeah. Have you
Way
seen
to
his
sneak
muscles?
that in.
Yeah. This guy's been working out, man.
Yeah.
Like every time I see him, I'm like, okay, fine. Then I guess I better hit the gym too. Then I guess. Like, geez.
There's pressure here.
Yeah.
My girlfriend was telling me, she's like, you're reaching now. And I'm like,
oh, there you go. Took that many years. There you go. He's like Benjamin Button, right?
Yes.
He's like reversing.
Yeah, which is, my sister was like, he should just cut his hair. And I'm like, no, don't cut your hair because then all the ladies are going to be after you.
Well,
So you like his long, I was like, I love it. I have the same curly hair right now.
we sort of do. I walked it up looking at Karen. I'm like, you know what? We sort of do. And I put mine into a bun now. I'm like, I got to put my hair away so I don't look like Karen. They're like, oh, what? Thank you for
Those were nice
saying
words.
You're welcome.
I like that.
the part about like the last part.
Oh, about how
Just
I'm
being
reaching?
like, no, everything. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for your nice words.
Those were really nice. I wanted to give you guys a second to say that. That was really thoughtful. Okay, I was going to ask you, though, a couple things. I just want to talk a little bit about, like, cultural experiences. So you talked about your Vietnamese, Aman's Punjabi.
Mhm.
So Carrie and I, we did a little interracial segment. And I just want to talk about for you guys, what are some things that maybe, did that come up a lot in the beginning years? And does it still come up a lot? The fact that you're from two different races together.
Oh, it's a constant thing. I think that we live in Surrey, BC, and I don't know, the demographic of Surrey, BC is very much Indian.
Yeah.
Punjabi especially.
Yeah.
So it's different. It's different it's actually becoming more common now. We're seeing it a lot more as we're out and about.
Yeah.
But before, at our age, it's quite rare.
The beginning, for sure.
Yeah.
So if I can tell a story, like one time we were at an Indian grocery store and the cashier was looking at us and she was, processing our stuff. And then she looked over and she actually asked Aman, like, does your parents know?
Like with attitude?
Well, I don't know. It was just sort of like maybe
How else do you take
curiosity.
that, really? Maybe.
He's like, you're hiding, right? Do your parents approve of this?
Totally.
Yeah.
With this Asian woman here, you can
Like you're
find
out
a
in
Punjabi
public.
girl?
That's the thing. And it's like, whoa, you took, I feel it's almost like you took one of my men. You took one of our men and he's a good one. I get it. Like, I get why you're upset, ladies, but we see it a lot. Like, we see a lot of people take double takes of us.
Yeah.
And
because your combination is also not common.
Totally.
It's usually, the mixed race is usually like somebody mixed with Caucasian, right? White and East Indian, white and Asian, white and black, like Vietnamese or any like honestly like Asian and South Asian.
It's rare.
It's very rare.
Yeah.
It's very rare. And so that's why I was like curious if people would, we feel it too quite a bit for different reasons though. And so like I was curious for you guys, but that's interesting. Did you feel it on the other end too? Like from Brenda's side in terms of being accepted?
I think for being accepted, besides like, like I don't think there was really anyone else that was ever mean to me.
But did your brother-in-law not accept because she was with a Punjabi person, or was just in general like I don't really care for people?
I think it was like general, just like this is my sister, like this is his little sister.
Yeah,
this is like the first guy.
One's good enough.
Yeah, like she's starting to bring around. Like I think that's where his was more. Back in the day, back in the day, that's what you did. The brother of the sister was always, screw you, and the dad, fuck you.
That's what you did. That's how you showed your love.
Exactly, but we don't do that anymore. But outside of just that, I don't think there was anyone that was openly mean or
I don't think
rude. And if they were, I never really noticed it. I think for our immediate family, my dad was not happy at the beginning. My mom was very happy because like at that time of my life, like I was also not making wise life decisions. We don't need to go into that, but she thought of that like, oh my, there's a girl, and like maybe the girl will like
she'll save him.
Yeah, she'll keep him on the straight and narrow, right? Like that's a very Indian thing to think of. This guy's an idiot, and hopefully this person can come in and save him instead of just being like, hey, idiot, don't be an idiot.
You're the problem.
Correct.
But it's like, well, you can take the pressure on and change them.
Exactly.
A lot of daughter-in-laws have that expectation 100%. When they come in.
Yeah. Like this guy's a drug addict. This guy's an alcoholic. Now here's this woman that we're just they barely know one another. And now you try to fix them.
Yeah, that's right.
Like what a terrible thing to do to another human being.
Yeah. But in your case, Brenda just made the choice.
True. That's right.
Yeah.
I don't know if she,
you weren't a terrible human being.
No. He was funny.
Yeah. The beginning of our relationship was very different because of where we were and how old we were. And
we were like young and partying.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
there was a lot of good times at the very beginning because we partied a lot.
Totally. Yeah.
We were young.
You
we
have
were
a
like
good time.
20,
You're in your
21
20s.
years.
You can get up the next day and go to work.
Exactly.
Oh my God,
right. That's what we did.
Yeah. So it's just like adventures after the right?
But,
so for your family though, what do you think? Because I obviously it's not that way as we know, like Brenda's so well loved. What do you think changed for your dad or some of the family members with like?
How can you not like Brenda? Right.
This is just, can we do this every day? I just want to slip this.
It's so true though. It's so true though. It is true, right? Like you genuinely get to know the person. You're like, this isn't about race.
Yeah.
And it's always fear. Like, you're the unknown, something different. But when you actually put the guard down and get to know the person, you're like, oh yeah, it should always be about the fact that you're human, not the fact that you're this color or
because I think it was for him. It was more thinking about what other people would think about
Yes.
that.
It's always that, isn't it? Yeah, that's hard.
Like they're going to think less of him because like, how would you allow your son to do that? It's somehow this grown man's responsibility to tell another grown man what to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like what a different way to think.
Yeah.
From the North American way to think.
Totally.
Right?
Which is like, you make your own choices.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like we're going to do what we can to raise you up to be like a good human being later on. And I think that's where his worries were, where, well, these people are going to think that, maybe I wasn't a good dad or that you don't love me or care about my opinion. Or
our culture.
That's right.
You don't love our culture. You don't, then that's like instead of a positive of we're bringing in another culture to embrace ours, it's, we're going to lose you.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And the bloodline. I think it's like, what's the caste? Because I think when we got together,
like,
outside of the caste or whatever.
like being a different, like the
There's
kids.
so much to that caste system.
Yeah.
Still.
Like you can be Punjabi, but not the farmers.
Correct.
You're on the other side of the river. Forgive me. I try to keep up, but I can't.
Yeah.
Right. And I've had people actually send feedback about that saying, can we talk about this? Like, how do I have my family understand that I'm happy?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, isn't that what we're striving for?
Yeah.
Like, how do I find a way to just have gratitude and be with someone that I feel safe with? And so there's all these young people that are feeling maybe a lot of red flags during the wedding, lead up to the wedding, but because this wedding's going to happen and, you have to marry the person you have to marry, we are seeing these relationships, separations and divorces within the 2-year mark, definitely by the 5-year mark.
Yeah. Because we made that decision, right?
Yeah.
No one made it for us.
You guys, and you guys took time, like Carrie and I, you guys were together for 7 years before you got married.
7.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 years. Yeah, that's right.
Right?
You did the math.
Only because we literally have the same timeline. We even remember we got married, right? So our kids are around the same. That's where we kind of weren't at the same.
Yeah.
But that's just it. Like you guys also lived together before you got married, which was a big no-no for especially at the time.
So I think for sort of both sides of the family.
Both sides. Yeah. So we had to be engaged before we lived together.
Mm-hmm.
So then as soon as we got engaged, we lived together after.
Yeah.
Right.
But my mom was not going to let me move out. And with Aman before that, for sure.
Yeah.
But by then they did, like going back to acceptance, like, it didn't take our family long to love her.
Right.
I introduced her at my 21st birthday party.
Yeah. On the rooftop there. Like up top. I remember that.
Yeah. At Riverside Banquet Hall. The OG, like the original,
OG,
the big, the one small one.
Yes.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yeah. It's
no
21st.
big ones.
That's right. I'm not getting married.
Yeah.
Everyone loved her. And, I think by the time, we got engaged for sure, her family was very much, because then you understand, like, they obviously love her.
Yeah.
And if she's made this decision and, I'm not like a complete terrible person, then they've been okay. And, like I said, I was always very nice and polite and I was never mean or rude. And I continue to be like that. Yeah.
Overall, it was good. It wasn't, I've heard a lot of horror stories.
Totally.
Yeah.
Definitely. But they were very accepting. I think they were at the point where, like with our families, they just wanted happiness for us. And I think that there was a lot going on for your family too, right? So this is with a glimmer.
And we had, like, I think we had a really good example in our family where one of our cousins went through something very, very hard in terms of her having an interracial relationship. And, her husband now, he's brown and he's just, a different religion.
Yeah.
And he comes from a different area in that general area.
Yeah.
But he is such a great person.
Right.
And her parents maybe didn't handle that in the best way, but now they understand that was something that they did and he is a great human being. And then I think my parents learned from that. Like there's no point in, there's no need to think about if you marry outside of your caste or your religion that it automatically means divorce.
Definitely. Yeah.
It sort
divorce can happen in any way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by that time when we were starting to think about getting married or we were getting together, by then divorce in our culture was more normal. Yeah. Right? It was more accepted. Yeah. It didn't mean that, now you're a castaway or whatever, right? Right. Your life
can't go on.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's sad that it took as long as it did, but I'm grateful for the fact that it's also like seeing our family, our parents, because, all three of us at the table were children of immigrant parents. So it's funny, you get to your 40s, Brenda, you said it's a lot of like not giving fucks. And I think we get in our 40s and we start to think a lot about our childhood and also making sense of why our parents did the things we did, and maybe some forgiveness there too. If they did the best they could, they had a lot running up against them.
Yes.
And it's also, I hear a lot of what you're saying in this. Actually, we were driving in Cloverdale and there was this church and it had like a little, they always put their little prayer sign thoughts up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I love this because it said, our faith is over 2,000 years old, but our thoughts are not. And I was like, man, that church kind of makes me want to go step inside and take a look and ask them some questions.
No kidding.
I thought that's exactly what it is like our beliefs and our customs. Of course, they come from our ancestors, and there's a lot of grassroots and things that hopefully we don't forget about with where we come from.
Yeah.
But our thoughts and our interactions and how we develop, that has to change over time. Like we all as humans, we change.
Yeah. We adapt.
And right. And so we have to figure out how to face those fears that get in the way of us thinking like, oh, you got to stay within, or, even interactions I've had in the last little while with some friends and family too, about thinking that way is not helpful. Like there's a lot more going on, right? Come on. Can we like recognize that this country belongs to many of us?
Totally.
We're all in it. So can we work together versus this is my home, you go home kind of a thing. And I really appreciated that sign. So it's like, like we think we're going to lose our faith if we change our thoughts, but that's not, those are two different things.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was a big fan of that. So just like back to cultural experience for you guys have 2 kids. How do your kids see their role as kids from 2 different cultures? Do they identify with one more, or do they see the balance, like, or do they think nothing of it?
There's so much for our kids that they have to contend with. I feel like growing up in Surrey and living in Surrey, I think that there's a lot of them having to almost prove that they're Indian in ways.
Like live up to that last name. Like send us a picture of your dad.
Yeah. Alexis is, we're sorry.
No way kids are saying that. Like we don't, because your daughter, both your
Neither
kids
child
look
really.
both of them look very Asian. Your son is an Asian version of you, Aman.
Yeah.
Like he just has all and then Brenda, your daughter looks so much like you, but I do see Indian traits, but you do see a lot of the Asian, your Vietnamese traits for sure.
Yeah.
So being in Surrey, they're assumed people think that they're Asian, not South Asian.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so the kids, no filter. They're always just like, are you sure? And like AJ brought roti and butter chicken to school and the kids were like, that doesn't look like butter chicken. Are you sure that's butter chicken?
Oh my god.
Little things like that where I feel like they're always having to prove themselves in ways that they are, and that's hard because where do you fit in? Where do you land, right?
Yeah.
So my daughter's really adapted to the culture. And it's funny, this weekend we had an engagement party, an Indian engagement party, and she chose to wear a dress. Yeah. The next day she had an Indian party, her friends' parties, and she decided to wear a sari. Oh. So it's like, Aman's mom even was like, that's funny how she will wear it for her friends, but not us. Like, because
and it was
something there.
The crazy thing about that, I'll just say, it was very cool for me is that that sari that she wore was one that my mom wore like in the 70s, I think.
Grandma's.
It was pretty special.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's 14 too. So I remember, I think I was like 14 too the first time. It was a family party and it was like such a big deal because
you're showing your stuff.
Yeah. Like sorry, as traditional as it is also like your women wear it, not teenage girls, right? Because it was such a big deal, but it's so cool. Yeah, I guess like sometimes they pick and choose because even our kids are very proud to tell their friends. These guys, I feel like they do a good job remembering they're Indian and their friends are really interested. They ask questions and stuff and they're like, oh, that's so cool. Because the kids are like, oh yeah, like Indian weddings are the best. And they pick and choose the best parts as we talked about, right? But sometimes I feel like there has to be reminders of like, hey, when you talk like that, you're not really defending or standing up for this side of the table and you're on both sides, buddy.
It is.
For us, it's privilege, right? Like having Carrie's side versus our side. So it's like helping them balance as well. And as boys, you're not just two white boys.
Yeah.
So that's where my curiosity comes for you guys around.
I think, they sort of do the same where, they'll pick and choose depending on what the occasion is, what culture or what side they want to, really represent or what have you. I think Alexis is more drawn to the Vietnamese side of things just because she's a mama's girl, right?
Yeah.
She loves her mom and everything about her mom, and as much as she pretends she doesn't, she does.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. Because you're so not cool.
Yeah, I'm not cool.
But I think for her, luckily, I don't think for her it's something that's really top of mind, having to represent one way or another. You had talked about this on one of your recent episodes about how we were sort of hiding, assimilate. We're not brown. We don't eat onions and things.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. There's no curry in our house.
Yeah. I don't smell like that. It's not my mom that cooked. It's that other kid that smells like that. Yeah.
Exactly. But nowadays they don't need to prove anything, and they are who they are. And if people are like, "Oh, you're half brown," she's like, "Yes, I am." But AJ, I think he identifies a lot more. Yeah. To being a Punjabi person.
Oh yeah, he loves bangara. He eats all curry. Everything.
He loves
everything that Dima makes. He eats. He goes to the Gurdwara to have prasad.
Which is the best
favorite thing.
Sugar.
Yeah, it's so good.
So tasty.
He wants to go to Punjabi school.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. He's got a lot of Indian and brown friends, Punjabi friends, and so he is very much, I think, like that. Plus, I think I'm a good enough dad where he sort of looks up to me a lot, so
totally.
Yeah, I think, we both got the kids on, she has the girl, I got the boy.
Yeah. I think the fact of the matter is, if you put our kids in a group of Indian kids, they're going to stick out.
Yeah.
If you put them in a group of Vietnamese kids, they're going to stick out. So the goal is that they just, authentically show up who they are. Whoever they are.
Yeah.
And if they're accepted, they're accepted. If they're not, then
they'll figure it out.
Yeah. They have to figure it out.
Yeah.
They have to.
Yeah.
This is just the world we live in, right?
Yeah.
You find the people that you mix with.
Yeah.
That's just it.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
I don't think for them, I don't think there's been a lot of negatives that have come from that either, right? Regardless of what, the brown kids being like, "Well, are you brown?" I don't think there's a lot of negativity behind that. I think it's more oh my God, a lot of these kids, they are how we grew up.
Right.
So Kieran, imagine when we were growing up and in elementary or high school, you came across someone who was Punjabi and Vietnamese.
Never. That would never happen.
How mind blown would you be?
Were they?
What?
Wait, your dad is Punjabi and he was allowed to be your mom? Yeah. No. And then that's why it's show me the picture. Because you can't have a Punjabi dad. And probably then he goes to Vietnamese friends and it's what?
Yeah, that's not normal.
It's very interesting because I don't know how it is anymore. I wonder. And it's interesting to hear you say that there's a lot of first generations. We're not the only ones because we grew up and had kids doesn't mean other people didn't come, right? Yeah. Right. So when you think of that, I always wonder, I'm do these kids have curfew? Are these kids being raised a little different than we are? In many ways, they're not.
They're not.
Right?
From our experience.
Yeah.
I think AJ has a lot more
leeway because his friends are boys.
Correct. So boys in the Indian culture, regardless of if their first, second, third generation parents, generally there's a little bit more leeway with boys because whatever
they're boys, man.
Yeah.
Carry the name.
They can take care of themselves.
Of course
whatever.
They can because they all have little Brendas to help them.
we gotta protect our girls because they can't do anything on their own, right? But we in our experience, it seems like it's still very much you're not allowed to go out, you don't go out and you don't go to the mall with your friends.
Yeah.
If you do, there needs to be a chaperone there. It needs to be a planned situation. So I think it is still very similar, unfortunately. You'd hope that those parents would come here and be a little bit more accepting to allow their kids to have a little bit more North American culture, Canadian culture, because it's a great place to grow up.
Yeah. It's so safe in comparison. and maybe not always, but definitely in comparison to being Canada and to get health in the way I know again, health, we can argue both ends and say it's terrible, but when we look at it from a global perspective, we are very fortunate.
Yep.
Like it is a time to thrive. A lot of acceptance, as you say, like especially for kids today with identity and all those things going on. And so you're right. It is a good place to grow. And I think sometimes it's about, is it about the people immigrating over and them needing to open up? But also I always worry, like, just again, we're so good as a country of bringing people over, but then we just stop once they arrive. Like, where's integration and help and support? So like, you know, you hear, oh, they need to know how to speak English to access transportation. And it's, yeah, okay. You're fine. They've been here for 6 months or 10 years, but you go live in Cambodia.
Totally.
And in 6 months to 10 years, I know I won't be able to learn the language.
Especially
and
as like a 20 or 30, 40-year-old human being at this age learning another.
Yeah. And that's the age that these parents are immigrating with these kids, right? So I think you're right. Like, yes, but I think like, how can we help any culture that comes over? Like, how do we help people integrate better? Because I think, I don't know, maybe it'll help with crime. Maybe it will help with all these other things that we're all struggling with, why are people constantly saying, go back home? It's like, okay, great, sure. But also, like, can we all talk about that a little bit? You know, like, yeah, maybe I have the ability coming from North America to go to Cambodia and Google, what is the etiquette as a woman that's walking in the village? Like, should I be fully covered or not? But education isn't this, you know, like, so we have privilege in North America.
There's reasons why they want to leave where they live and come here.
Yeah, they're not taught.
And they're not doing it on purpose. It's not like they're sitting there like, oh, I'm not going to learn the language. I'm not going to move to another.
Fuck you people. I've refused, right?
Exactly.
And again, how many people were told like they had to come here too? Like, some people don't want to be here necessarily, but it's a safety thing.
Yeah.
They're like, if we had it our own way, we'd be in our own country too, but our country's really unsafe. So I guess
Brenda's
like,
parents.
right, as refugees you talked about. You know, if they like, do they ever talk about that? Like, if they could, would they still have, I mean, maybe that's not a fair question because they've been here so long now.
Yeah, they would. They would definitely have come for sure because life is different there. Yeah, it was a hard life for them coming here and trying to assimilate the way that they did. Like, they got here, and as soon as they got here, the church that brought them over from the refugee camp changed their names instantly and gave them
North
like
American.
Mark and Nancy.
Yeah.
Like, those were their names, and a big loss of identity there. So it was hard, but they adapted. My dad did all the things they needed to do because it was a time where if you didn't adapt, you weren't gonna make it.
Yeah.
You were,
and they had it hard. Our parents had it so hard with the racism and all that. But yet they did adapt hard.
Yeah. And that's why they didn't ask us how our day at school was. They didn't really care about, you know, those kinds of friend dramas that are happening because they didn't have the capacity for it. They were making sure that we were fed and we were taken care of in ways. Yeah. So survival.
And they didn't grow up that way either.
Yeah.
Their parents weren't asking them. So like, how did they, you know, they're going to model behavior.
Yeah.
So if it's not modeled for them, obviously, like, you can't expect them to, you know, to do that. But I think just as people grow, you just sort of like just learn. Like,
totally.
Let's be more loving. You know?
Yeah. Well, you know, and I think you see that with our parents and their grandkids now.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
You probably see your mom and dad with your kids is like, oh, like, that's where you see the spectrum of growth. You're like, this is nice to see. This is awesome, right?
Absolutely.
That there's this understanding of the things that maybe they didn't know too, because nose, head down, go to work, do the things that you got to do, you know? So we talked a little bit about you guys as an interracial couple, but going back to the beginning of the conversation, just as in a relationship, you had talked about the 4 horsemen.
Yes.
And Gottman's theory.
Yes.
And part of putting this episode together was this, what is keeping you guys together? And you guys shared some of that in the beginning. And I thought maybe this would be a good time to talk a little bit about Gottman's theory of the 4 horsemen, but also when you and I were sort of going back and forth about this, I really like this idea of a big part of building this foundation in a relationship is fair fighting. How do you argue? How do you fight? And we touched on it a little bit earlier, that tit-for-tat, as well as earlier we talked a little bit about how do you individually accept, this is how I need this to go, this is how I need to, and we don't all have to come. You don't have to come to my end or not. Can we talk a little bit about the theory and just sort of like ways in which maybe there's people listening today that are like, yes, I really would like to learn how to fight fair. Like, can you fight fair? Like, does it have to be nasty all the time? What are some ways that we can argue and have a relationship with our partner after the fact versus grudging and all that stuff.
Yeah. I think the most important part of, so the 4 Horsemen, criticism is a huge one. And I hear, from my girlfriends and stuff all the time when we're talking about our partners.
Yeah.
We go into, oh, you're so lazy. Like, why didn't you just do the dishes? That kind of stuff. And it doesn't need to be like that, because then it's sort of pointing the finger and making them feel a certain way about themselves and their character.
Yeah.
And it's talking about how instead of that, soft startup. So how you're feeling about the situation and not blaming them and not saying, well, you did this and you did that. So criticism is one of the biggest things that I wasn't cognizant of. When I started to learn about this, I started to really model it and embody it in our relationship. Another one of those things is contempt. And I had no clue what that was. And that's actually, which I did all the time, was rolling my eyes. I rolled my eyes at Aman all the time. And it was a really big trigger for him, because when I rolled my eyes, again, I questioned your character in whatever way. In what you were doing, I was obviously disagreeing. So I've been trying really hard not to. And instead of the rolling of the eyes, coming in with a more positive, leaning in and turning towards. There's this theory where if you physically just turn towards your partner, you can be connected more. So that was another thing that I've been modeling. Have you noticed any of these things when I started taking this on? I really do wonder. Yeah. Like, because I've been
evaluate this.
Yeah, I've really been trying to not do that. And, these little things we don't realize affect our relationships because it's the negative, right? So
I think so. Yeah. I think I've definitely noticed the turning in. The physical turning in. The roll, I don't know. Like, did you roll your eyes at me?
Oh my God. You used to get so upset when I rolled my eyes. There you go, rolling your eyes again.
Okay.
Don't you remember that? It was a big.
He's like, I'm done with the old days. I'm so
Did you forget already? I'm so good at this that you forgot.
He's like, exactly. Yeah.
But there's also like defensiveness, and this just happened the other day. Like, I just had mentioned something, and Aman started to get defensive. I'm like, hey, like that wasn't my intention. Like, I'm not blaming you for anything. Like, this is just. There, and when Aman brings something up, I get defensive sometimes too, right? Because it's hard. We want to protect ourselves. We want to make ourselves right, and our partner's wrong. So that's something to really look out for as well. If you're entering conversations and with your armor on and defensive and ready to fight, it's not going to be a good turnout. You know, everyone's going to come.
If you want to win, right? If you're like, I'm going to win this today.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to prove you wrong.
That's right.
Or prove I'm right. Usually it's not, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to prove that I'm right.
Because you need to validate that, right?
Yeah. I wasn't crazy or whatever stupid, whatever dialogue I have in my own head. So now I'm going to keep going until you see the evidence of, you did run that red light or whatever situation that was.
Yeah.
No, I think, she's.
And the last one is
that was been very good though.
This one?
No,
never trash talk.
No,
you,
right? Let's be
such
real
a boring
here.
Maury Povich show.
Well, I don't know. In comparison,
well, the last one, stonewalling. It's when if we are having a conversation, or if we start fighting about something, I would just leave the conversation and completely disengage from you without even giving you any warning.
Yeah.
So you're still trying to talk to me, and I have just left you. So I've left you with all of your stuff. And just said, hey, you could have taken that like, I'm not important. She obviously doesn't care to have this conversation. She obviously doesn't love me. And the spiraling begins. Yeah. So stonewalling's another thing where, you know what? Okay, fair enough. When you're dysregulated and your blood is boiling, no good can come from that. But there needs to be some dialogue. If you need to leave the room, you have to let your partner know, like, hey, I'm feeling a little bit emotional right now. Can we have a minute and come back in like 5 minutes just so that I can, take some time for myself and go do the things you need. Go get some fresh air, go have some water, go whatever you need to get grounded so that you can come back to respond instead of react to what's going on.
Yeah. Let's talk. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Respond versus react, because we say those words, and a lot of times we say a lot of words and but this and that can in a sentence can just either make a conversation go really good or not really well. And to me, respond and react are those words. So I'd like to hear from you. What do you mean by respond versus react?
So for me, responding would be going back to how you feel and what it means to you about the situation. Whereas react is basically, you're going to go in, you're going to blame, and you're going to start to pick all the things that have escalated the situation, that your partner has done wrong.
Yeah.
So reacting is almost finger pointing, I would say. And then responding is, I'm feeling a little bit agitated right now, and my needs aren't being met. My need for a clean kitchen is not being met.
Mm-hmm. We're like role playing right here.
Can you help me with that?
I love it. Yeah.
But lately it's been we haven't had a lot of these things, because I think that, knock on wood, because tomorrow we're just going to get into this big explosive fight
when
about
we're on our way to
something.
Cultus Lake Water Park. You guys are going to be like, no. But you guys, you're talking, like, I really appreciate what because you're talking a lot here about a key to having a strong relationship with anyone, could be your coworker, for all, it doesn't have to be with a partner, is communication. And these little strategies you're listing here, like the 4 different ways that we can behave in a conversation with someone, they can, again, get in the way or help us with the strategies you just shared and how to have this conversation. So rather than being reactive, can I say to you, like, I'm really upset by the fact that you just said that to me, yet I need to walk away for a second and we'll come back to it. I just need to pause. I got to figure this out for myself first, make sure I'm okay.
Yeah.
Versus just being impulsive and being like, what the fuck, Brenda? You said that to me?
Yeah.
Which is common for many of us.
Can I intercept with that?
Yeah.
Sorry. So when you had said that, also something to avoid is the word you, because as soon as you
did this to me, right?
You've blamed someone now. You put that on them.
Yeah.
So just
this is you put this on me versus I'm feeling this way.
I need this.
Yes.
And I need to go do this.
Yeah. So taking responsibility is what you're saying for myself versus saying you made me be this way.
Yes.
If you didn't put that there, I wouldn't have slipped on it.
Yeah.
Or done.
If you just cleaned the kitchen, then we wouldn't be having this fight.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And there's no.
You're so lazy.
Yeah. There's no.
And that just shuts it down. Because like you're right. When we get into that, then all I'm going to think about is you think I did that, or you're now. I'm going to be defensive. Like I didn't do that. I didn't say that. Versus. Literally what we're talking about is I just need a minute. I need a break.
Yeah.
There's no fight there. There's no argument there if I can go take that break. Carrie and I like to do the pause thing too. We learned that from Lily and Marshall and How I Met Your Mother. Just like sometimes some of us think with logic brain and some of us think with emotion brain.
Yeah.
And when you both are one or the other, that's hard because someone's trying to help you with logic brain, think about all the rational reasons why. And for me, I'm emotion brain. I'm like, I fucking feel this way and I need to fucking talk,
Yeah.
And, where the facts, like logic brain to me gives me a reason to not be mad because there's a good reason why this happened.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes like recognizing how and why we fight too, like just for me, it's got to come out this way. And so, like you said, when with you and Aman, if you're going to walk away, if that was you and me, and I'm like throwing all this at you, you're absolutely right. If you stonewall and, I'm done. Yeah. We're not having this right now. Like, where am I supposed to put all those feelings now?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to pace and follow you to the next. Like our kids do this when we do this to our kids and say, not right now. I can't do this for you right now.
True.
I need a minute.
Yeah.
And your kid's like, I'm fucking 2 years old, Mom. I can't give you a minute. And I'm going to follow you to every room in the house until you give
my fishies.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But as adults, we do that too, where we're like, exactly, I want my fishy crackers. I'm going to go with you.
Yeah.
So can you help us a little bit with some of the things that you guys would say is working, like going back to some of those strategies? And so like if we find ourselves in that stonewalling place of this conversation's over, I'm leaving this room, or I'm not even telling you, I'm just like, or maybe I'm not physically leaving the room, but my mind and brain are just going to shut off from you. And I'm going to stare at you with a blank face, but I'm not even listening to you. So I'm stonewalling you in that way. If that's how I respond, or if that's how someone that you're working with or living with is responding to you, what are some things that can be helpful in how to get through that and finish that conversation?
We're hoping for a safe place for you to offer that space for them and say, hey, I'm noticing that, you're not in this conversation right now. Do you need a minute? Do you need some time? Do you need some time to process? And, understanding it, obviously they need something, and that need might be just to take a minute and ground themselves. They've dissociated. So that would be the key thing, just to be with them in what they need, not what you think they need. Yeah. So, and that's communication. So to build this safe space where they're able to voice these things, knowing that because depending on attachments, they might think that, they don't want to be with me anymore. You can go spiraling with all the thoughts. Yeah. And to just be with them with what they need at the time would make them feel safe and held. And I think that would be the best way to approach those. Yeah. Call it out for what it is. Do you need time? And maybe you need time too to regulate. So that would just be my suggestion, just to like hone in on your partner. Notice some things, like, what do you need?
Right. Anything you want to add?
I think that's the consideration. I think lately, if we haven't had a lot of fights lately, I don't think. But
this is what Brenda's saying tomorrow, man.
Argument wise, like arguments you always have arguments. Yeah. But I think our arguments were like more considerate from the get-go. Like, so we're more willing in that argument, like we're more willing to give that person understand where that thought is coming from. Or a big thing for me used to be like, I always used to think it was, you did it on purpose. Yeah, like you're trying to do that. Yeah. And then it's over the years, I'm just like, why the fuck would she? It's like, the customers at a call center who like think you can give them the free phone, but you're like, bro, if I could give you the free phone, I just would have done that 15 minutes ago. Right.
And I would have had one too.
Exactly. So I think that for me is more consideration.
It goes back to, I think, the positive deposits and the times where we are not, when we're just doing the mundane things, like for us to just be considerate of each other and think of each other in this, hey, like, I don't have to do this. So do you want me to, just to help each other out in ways to make our lives easier?
Like you're working together.
Yeah.
Makes the dream work.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Is that what you tell your kids?
That's what I tell everyone.
And it's our friendship. I think we have a really good friendship. I think friendship is key to any healthy relationship. You have to have that friendship.
I think that's what we were.
I want to hang out with them. Yeah. Like, I'm like, let's go for a hike. I was like, let's go. Not a hike. We haven't done a hike.
That's dumb.
But I think like
movies
for us, like, I think I might have mentioned this on the last podcast, was that COVID, I felt, was like, it's terrible that all the terrible shit that happened, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not taking any of that away. I'm not like, I wish COVID happened, but it ended up being really good for our relationship, I felt. Like, a lot of people were stuck in a house together and got divorced. Yeah. Luckily for us, we were stuck in a house together, and that made us come closer together. Like, that grew our relationship. It helped us just be with each other more, to get to the point of understanding, like, hey man, like, all you got to do is clean the kitchen, you know, and it's awesome. Then it's
you
good.
Just made her day times 10, or the other person, you're like, oh, this little thing that doesn't impact me at all. Yeah. Is actually allowing
to,
like come home and thrive, where it's not just like, now I'm stuck. And that's the thoughtfulness piece that you guys were talking about, is like looking out for each other in that way. Any lessons that you guys have learned along the way that people listening maybe would find value, or that you feel really helped you? If you were going to write the book of commitment or relationships, what would be the lessons learned that you would put in there?
Everything worth anything takes a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And you cannot go into any relationship thinking that it's going to be easy. Like, let's work smarter, not harder. No. Smarter is where potentially like battling one another. Yeah. So, like it's just hard. It's not easy, but when you put the work in, it gets easier to do. It just becomes habitual to do the things that, like we don't, there's certain things we don't have to think about anymore, but that's because we put the work in now, right? Like, we worked hard.
I would say that sometimes as we age and as our life transitions into different parts, sometimes people hang on to their past in ways where you wish that things were still like that. Like, you know, I wish that we could still go clubbing because we don't have kids anymore, blah, blah. What if you refocus that and you look at the things that you have now and you appreciate the things you have now and realize that stuff was fun when it was, but now you're in a different stage in your life, and stop hanging on to those kinds of things and really start appreciating what you have in front of you.
Oh, I thank you for saying that. Would you say that has to do with you guys having goals and things to like look forward to or move forward with?
Yeah, I would say so, for sure. I would say that it's also now having these little children witness us and us wanting so much more for them that we want to be so much more so that they can be. You know, you always want your kids to be better than you are.
Yeah, we talk about, Aman and I might talk like, because we always say, you know, we grew up okay, but we're like, do we really want that for our kids? Like, we want better.
Yeah.
If we can do better. And
Why
I'm not
not?
saying financially, as you mentioned last time, we're not saying mansions, but just the kind of love or understanding that, you know, we can learn to have for them. Because, man, you need a lot of that for, especially as they get older, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think when we started parenting our kids, it was always like, well, I didn't get that when I was there. Well, I didn't do that.
They'll be fine.
Yeah, they'll be fine. We didn't have that. But I think we're just, and that's a little bit of us hanging on to our past in the way that our parents parented us. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, we can do a little bit better.
Yeah.
If anything.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
But I would say that, like, going back to that question, we've never really had goals that were just for us. Majority of our goals have always had the outcome is not, ooh, this will be for me.
Yeah.
It'll be, hey man, like when we do this, even if it was like her trying to do something for herself, the end goal is always going to be, it's for us.
That's right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's never singular.
You mentioned that earlier. We were talking about that. You weren't there. Aman and I were sitting outside earlier, and we were talking about vacation, and he and I started talking about just a big part of being in a successful relationship, or relationship at least that you feel good about, is the supporting each other's individual goals, but also dreams. And sometimes we look at the monetary, we think we're successful because we have X amount of money to buy that house or that car or go on that vacation. Or we want to get ahead, as we would think, right? Like, oh, we need to get ahead. And sometimes getting ahead is also saying, well, why don't we eat a little more macaroni and cheese so one of us doesn't have to work while the other one pursues this passion or this dream, and let's see where that goes. And maybe financially it'll go somewhere far, but when we ignite the creativity, we are giving back to our family or the people around us in a way that I feel is valued way more than the fact that we had the money to buy that house or go on that vacation. Because now my house is peaceful because my partner is feeling fulfilled, and I'm learning from them because they're learning, and our kids are thriving. And I think somewhere along the line, we lose our creative juices because we have responsibility and we're not all privileged in the way we want to be.
Right.
We learn to be happy and accept what we have, but you don't need to have a whole lot to be able to support each other's creative outlets. And it was really cool because he was talking about wanting to support you in a journey you guys are trying to figure out for you and your creative outlet and your passion and getting into counseling and therapy. So I thought it kind of, that just sparked that, is what you were saying, is sometimes that, and that's the goal. My goal is to support my partner or my child in this thing that they want to do.
Because it's like, that's, it's I don't know.
Shared dreams.
Light.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Your win is my win.
Totally.
Right?
Like, it's a team. Like, again, teamwork makes the dream work. And it's like, she wins, I win. When I win, she wins.
Totally. Yeah.
Right? It's, it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Like, if successful marriage wise, like, there shouldn't be that separation there. I think it should be that whatever you're doing on your own, like, that should eventually lead to like a family goal, whatever that might be. And I think it's just overall, like, if everyone feels good.
Yeah.
How bad is that then?
No, that's not. It's great.
I like the teamwork is a dream work.
Yeah.
So what is one thing that, if it's the only thing people listening today can take, what would you two really hope that they take out of your episode?
Oh, this is a hard one. I would say compassion for your partner.
Yeah, I think that's a good one because then, that's that understanding piece, right? Understanding where they're coming from and not taking it down another road.
It's not about you sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a good one.
I love it.
Do you want something else?
Oh, do we both get to do it?
Yeah, you do both.
Yeah.
If you want to add one, please. Yes.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it would be for people to think that successful marriages are easy. They're not easy.
Because our friends and our family will tell you they've witnessed us in many fights.
Yeah.
They witnessed us. Rhonda and Trevor, like my sister and my mom, they've seen it all.
You guys have traveled together, so I'm sure they've really seen it.
Yeah. Their friend, when you travel together, you learn a lot about somebody and a couple dynamic for sure.
Yeah.
So I think that this is like we're at this place right now today, but tomorrow, it might be different. And we do have the positive deposits in there that will get us through, and maybe that's what it is. It's positive deposits. Just turn into your partner.
Yeah.
Oh, because there's bids too. There's also this thing called bids.
Oh,
sorry.
Please tell us about the bids.
The bids for like you bid. So basically, hey, Karen, look at that bird out the window. And you're like looking at your book and you're not engaging with me.
Yeah.
It becomes almost like a tit for tat. Well, they didn't engage with me at that point. I'm not going to engage the next time he says, look at this thing on my phone. It's so cool. And it's really important, even if it's like if I say something to you, there have been times where there's no response. Yeah. I'm sitting in a room by myself and something in me, it kills me.
Totally. I get it.
And I've started to always, when you're telling me all the fun facts, I'll always be like, oh yeah, that's cool. Even if it's, the standard, oh yeah, that's cool. You're going to hear that. You're going to now know that that's my standard response.
Oh yeah, she's on autopilot.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
But it's bits of affection, just leaning in and just hearing your partner, even if it's not interesting to you in any way, just to show them that attention. Yeah. It goes a long way.
Totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, like with kids.
Yeah.
I don't care every time my kids bring me a colored picture.
Exactly.
I really don't care about it. Every now and then, though, I got to give them, throw one at them, be like, I'll put this on the fridge and tell all my friends, you know what, I'll put it on social media.
Yeah.
Look at that, right? Yeah. This is, you did good. But that's the validation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't have to love that thing that they do. But the fact that Carrie talked a lot about that too. It's like, being excited about each other's passions. If you really want to go do that thing that I don't want to, like go to the art gallery or something. Yeah, it sucks for me, but is it really at the end of the day the worst thing in the world for me to go to the art gallery? I mean, there's things I draw lines at, like
hunting.
The art gallery.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. But Brenda's really good at that.
Hunting is totally one of them. Do not ask me to go. If Brenda goes hunting,
I'll never go hunting.
Yeah. She said she'd stay back at camp.
Oh yeah, I'd be a homestead. I'd be Alexis and I would
the foragers. You guys collect the berries,
or we just sit there and make s'mores, and somehow
I'll stay with you guys.
Yeah, and then we'll watch somehow stream some reality television. Or something.
They'll find a
hunting,
way.
Yeah,
we'll bring our KFC as they're like bringing back. Like
they're gross.
Yeah. Like what we just skipped in.
Yeah,
to the woods. Yeah, go for it.
No, I just thought the three of us would be really good. Alexis finds Wi-Fi anywhere we go.
Oh, okay.
So we're good.
Alexis.
We're good.
I'm going with her then.
Okay,
that's
sorry.
fine. No, okay, so I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you to both of you for being such big supporters. And I think just continuing the conversation. Carrie and I think the world of you two. We always quote your little thing that you wrote in our wedding card. Always end an argument with a bottle of wine. And maybe not anymore because not all of us are drinking anymore.
Yeah. Things have changed.
But just the message of don't go to bed angry if you can. Sometimes you find you got to sleep on it. Absolutely. But try to get back to that as soon as possible. And that always stuck with us too. Is like, can we not let this argument linger if we don't have to? Because that's when the positives, the bank drains out. Right?
Yeah,
when we let it linger, we're going to go on this big trip, this big guilt trip.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't have enough in my bank account for this big guilt trip.
That's a whole nother thing. When couples don't talk to each other for weeks. And you're like, dude, like that's not healthy.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a whole nother podcast.
Then we can do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the long pause.
Yeah.
I do want to say thank you again for coming on and having this conversation. This was really, I think,
Thank-
fun.
It was fun.
And
Yeah,
we
it was
sit
great.
down together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
It's always fun.
super fun.